open source arm of She Could Africa, and the aim of this community is to encourage Open Source Community Africa, and WOSCA is to produce and promote a more diverse and inclusive open source culture in the African tech ecosystem. So today we are having this webinar because the Outreachy Internship application is currently on, and for those of us here who don't know what Outreachy Internship is yet, I'll be giving a brief introduction of what the internship is about. So Outreachy is a paid remote internship. That means it happens online. It's an internship program whose goal is to support people from underrepresented groups in tech. Okay, so it gives you the opportunity to collaborate with mentors or mentor organizations who have experience when it comes to free and open source software contribution. And it's also paid. The internship is paid, and it's for those who are underrepresented in tech, as I said. Now, one thing about the Outreachy Internship is that the application process is usually more rigorous than other open source program applications you might know, and this is the reason why it's a lot daunting for a lot of people to either complete the application or even pull through with the contributing phase of the program, or even excelling through the program itself. And that is the reason we organize this webinar, to put you through everything you need to know, right from the application phase to the contributory phase, to the point where you get selected in the internship, and also how to ace through the internship proper, that's the internship program proper. So today we have two guests right here with us, and they are going to be giving us those tips on how to excel through Outreachy Internships. That is actually the topic and the theme of the webinar, excelling through Outreachy Internships. So we have two guests in the house. One is Glory Agatevre. I hope I pronounced that right. Glory, please say hi to us before I introduce you. Unmute yourself and say hi.
Oh, sorry about that. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Glory.
I hope you can
Thank
all
you
hear
so
me
much for
clearly.
joining us. So a brief about Glory. Glory is a mobile developer. Yes, I can hear you very well. Thank you so much for joining us, Glory. Goodness, please mute yourself, or the admin or anyone at that end can help mute Goodness so her voice doesn't cause nuisance in the call. Thank you so much. All right, so Glory is a mobile developer, and she does some technical writing, open source contribution, and community building. Glory was an intern in the last Outreachy internship program, and she interned with Wikimedia, and currently she's an intern with the WorldNet Association. So Glory has already passed through the internship process, both the application, the contribution, the internship proper, and all that. So we are very thankful for Glory to be here with us today, and we can't wait to hear the tips she's going to be sharing with us as well. Then we also have another guest, and she's Srishti Shetty. I pronounced that right. Srishti, please say hi to everyone so we know you're here with us.
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here and looking forward to sharing with you some tips. Hi.
Hi. Welcome. All right, so Srishti is the Senior Developer Advocate at Wikimedia, which was actually the organization where Glory interned in the last Outreachy internship. So you should know that she has ample knowledge on everything you need to know concerning both the relationship between mentors in the organizations, contributing, and every other thing. So in the next few minutes, we're going to be hearing from our guests. And please, there is only one ground rule, which is please keep your mics muted. If you have any question or any concerns, kindly use the message, that's the chat button for that, So always keep your mic muted, and we'll be taking questions. So any question you have, please feel free to drop it in the chat section. We are going to be taking it at the end of the session. That's at the end after we've heard from our guests. So let's hear from Glory. Glory is going to be telling us about how to actually apply, how to have a successful application in the Outreachy application phase. Okay, so how we have it here is how to apply and successfully get accepted as an Outreachy intern. So the first phase is application, right? So how do we actually ace our applications during the process? So Glory, the floor is yours.
Hi everyone. If you can hear me, please maybe to say hi on the chat. All right, fine. So thank you very much for that. I'm so happy to be here. First off, so excited to be given the opportunity to come talk to everyone here. And quickly, because we don't really have much time, and I was told this session is supposed to last for 20 minutes. So I'll just go straight to the point. I believe Amarachi has done justice to the introductory parts. And one more thing, I don't really have a fancy slide right here, so I might not really bother about projecting or, sorry, sharing my screen rather. So I'll just go straight to the point from here. I'll do less of talking to actually give us opportunity to ask our questions, because I know that the majority of us here have a lot of questions to ask as regard the Outreachy Internship program. So first off, I have a lineup of things I want to talk about today. First, you might want to know what's Outreachy. Amarachi already said something about that, so I might have to skip that. And then Outreachy schedule. There's this on the Outreachy program. If you go to the website, you see their schedule for the year. And we're also going to look at the initial application, finding the right organization, the contribution phase, and the internship phase. So first off, I'm going to start from the schedule, the Outreachy schedule. If you visit the Outreachy website, you notice that Outreachy program usually divided into two rounds. We have the mid-year internship and the end-of-year internships. So for the first one, it usually begins, the initial application opens up late January to end of February. Then for the end-of-year internship, it usually begins late August to end of September. And the contribution phase like that, when you visit the website, you see most of those things. Sorry, a minute, please. All right, seems like I'm having a little issues sharing the screen. Let me just continue. Then, as part of what I'll be talking about is the initial application, which is very important, because I believe most persons actually decide to wait for this time before they submit their application. So what are the things you need to look out for during the initial application? There are some certain questions that are usually asked during the initial applications, and some of them are a bit confusing for most of us. And some of those questions are usually on the essay parts. And first off, I'm going to be focusing on the number. I listed out like 5 questions that I believe are more recurrent. I get a lot of persons asking questions around that. And that is, the first question here is, are you part of an underrepresented group in the technology industry of the country listed above? So when you're filling the form, you must have indicated which country you came from and all that. So now Outreachy is asking, are you part of an underrepresented group in the technology industry of the country listed above, or the country you indicated while filling the form? So this part underrepresented is usually confusing for most persons, and I decided to do a quick Google definition of underrepresented. And it says underrepresented, to be underrepresented simply means to provide with insufficient or inadequate representation. So when you are applying, because Outreachy is basically focused on the underrepresented group in tech that are not much represented. So one of the criteria for you to get in while applying, you need to first of all be part of an underrepresented group. This is not to say that if you are really not underrepresented, you should go and lie about it. So you don't really need to do that. So you need to ask yourself, having understood what underrepresented or being underrepresented means, you need to ask yourself if you fall under that category. And if you do, you should be able to explain or express it in writing to the Outreachy community so that when they go through your application, they will understand that, okay, this person is from this country and this person is underrepresented, and you need to explain how and why, what makes you underrepresented. Then another important question again is, what systematic bias or discrimination would you face if you apply for a job in the technology industry of your country? So what's systematic bias? So this simply means that if you're applying in whatever country you're applying from, they are asking what are the bias that are involved, what are discriminations you usually face when you apply for a job in the technology industry of your country. Are you usually discriminated by reason of your sex or your age or your religion or tribe or whatever bias you know you must have faced in the past while applying to a technology industry? You need to also clearly state it during your application. Then another question again is, does your learning environment have few people who share your identity or background? Please provide details. So the Outreachy community wants to know if your learning environment, let's say you are in Nigeria and where you are, you have less of people that share your identity or your background, and because of that, you are being faced with some challenges in the process of learning. So now the questions, they look alike. The first part is, are you part of an underrepresented group? And the second is, do you face any systematic bias or discrimination when applying for a tech job? And the fourth again is, do you face any kind of challenge, or do you have less of individuals or group that you identify with when it comes to learning in the learning environment as it relates to tech? So these questions, they might look similar, but they are not exactly the same. And it's a bit tricky because these are the points where you're getting accepted or not is going to be determined. So you need to be very careful when filling these aspects of the form and give a good representation of yourself. So what systematic bias or discrimination have you faced while building your skill? So then again, there might be some discriminations or bias that you must have faced in the process of building your tech skills or in the process of learning one or two skills in tech. So the Outreachy community, they want to know what exactly are those systematic bias, what are those bias, what are those discriminations you have faced while building your skills. Is there something to do with, like I mentioned previously, something to do with your age or your sex, for the fact that you're a female, you probably are not being given the opportunity, or the fact that where you are, they are more of Muslims than Christians, and so that could be an issue. So those biases are issues that must have hindered your learning, or that must have hindered you while trying to build your skills. You need to clearly state them out. So after going through the initial application phase, basically I like to break down the Outreachy application process into three first, the initial application, which is what I just covered under the essay section, which is more or less like the critical aspects of the application. Then after going through the initial application, the next phase is the contribution period. So it is only when you get accepted, it's only when you pass the initial application that you can start looking at the contribution period. But let's assume all things being equal, after your application, or after your initial application, you were successful with the application, and the next thing that should come to play is the contribution period. So how you handle this also matters, because getting accepted in the initial application is not the end of it. Still have another thing to look at, which is the contribution period. So what does this entail? Before I talk about the contribution period, I would like to talk about selecting organization. How do you choose the organization you want to intern with or you want to contribute to? So like I would always like to say, it's very important for you to look at the projects that is out there on the Outreachy website. The different organizations submit different projects that they want interns to work on. So it is your responsibility to look at those projects that they have. I would always want to advise that your focus shouldn't be on the organization per se, but your focus should be the projects that they have on ground as it relates or as it matches your skill sets. This is very important because if you are going to pass the contribution phase, it all depends on how well you are able to perform during the contribution phase. So you need to check the projects that they have on the Outreachy website, different organizations, different projects. Check the staff that is required, the skill sets that is required. If you notice, most of the time they are being scaled. The skills are being scaled, like you might see something like 5 Gits or 5 JavaScripts, 5 Python. So that means you need to have a good knowledge of Python or you need to have a good knowledge of JavaScript. There may be 2 Gits. So that simply means it's not very important that you are a pro as it relates to Gits, but you should have some knowledge of Gits, knowing how to push, pull, and make those things happen when contributing to their projects. So those key rating or scale are very important. You need to look at them very well critically and ask yourself if your current skill set matches what this particular organization is looking for. So if that is the case, then that should be one of the easiest ways for you to determine if this particular project is a project you can actually contribute to. In as much as the focus is not for you to be a pro when it comes to contributing to open source, but the reality is that you need to have some skill sets. You need to have something that you can actually contribute to. So like you all know, majority of persons are actually applying for the internship program, and that means it's going to be competitive. So that means you need to be able to have something to offer and you need to be able to give in your best when contributing to any of those organizations. So basically the contribution period is usually lasts for close to a month or so. And during the contribution period, you are advised to always make contacts with the organization, make contacts with the mentors, whichever platform they use for their communication. It's your responsibility to find that, to figure that out. So if it's Slack, always be on the Slack channel, trying to communicate with the organization. Wherever you have issues, try to communicate with the mentors and all that. So in that case, they know that you are really interested in their organization, in the project, and you are making progress, you are doing 1 or 2 things, and it's obvious to the community. So that too will also increase your chances of being selected. And very important, it's not enough for you to have so many pull requests or create so many issues, but it's always very important for you to create how do I put it? Create relevant pull requests. And so what that means is, it's not just, okay, let's say coming from Android via a major, it's not just enough for you to just pick small, even though it's a good start. If you can afford to do something big, it's best. It shows that you have the ability to actually work on the projects at hand. So it's not just enough for you to just pick small issues. And maybe if you're an Android person, for instance, you want to work on issues that just these on SMS, or just UI and all that. So it's a good start, like I said, but if you can do more than that, you can. It's best. It proves to the organization that you are capable, your skill level is strong enough to be able to handle the projects for the period of the internship. So meanwhile, in addition to contributing, you are also required to record your contributions. So on the Outreachy website, after applying, getting accepted in the initial application, you have a dashboard where you can actually submit your contributions, whichever organization you are contributing to. Meanwhile, you might want to ask, can I contribute to more than one organization at a time? Yes, you can contribute to more than one organization at a time at this stage. But it's always best for you not to overdo it. Don't contribute to too many organizations so that you don't get distracted and you don't end up contributing making few contributions instead of making solid contributions to a particular organization. So it's best when you find your strengths, you focus on that. If you know that this particular organization, what is required, you have the skill, you can deliver, so it's best for you to put in more effort on that organization rather than trying to contribute to too many organizations at the same time. Then, at the end of your contribution, when you are sure of what you have done and you feel you are ready to submit your contribution, you can then fill out the final application. So before you do that, during this contribution phase, it's also the period where you also need to write your proposal. So at this stage, you write your proposal to whichever organization you are applying to. So it's best practice to make reference to previous proposals that have been written for that particular organization for you to know the type of the way they write their proposals and the kind of proposals that appeal to them. So it's good for you to make reference to previous interns, their proposals and all that. So you could seek help at the same time too from your mentors when writing the proposal. You ask one or two questions anywhere you are not clear. Don't try to do everything on your own. It's always best to carry your mentor along. So ask for support, ask for help where you need assistance while writing the proposal. So after the contribution phase, all things fine and good. If you pass this contribution phase, you'll be notified, a mail will be sent, and names of successful applicants will be published on the Outreachy website. So after the contribution phase, that is when the internship proper begins. And so the first part of the internship is usually the the bonding period, where you bond with the organization you want to contribute to. At this stage or at this time, you are expected to get more familiar with the organization and the projects which you'll be working on, and ask as many questions as you have to ask. Even at this stage too, you might need to make some changes to your proposal. You might need to make some adjustments to the proposal where necessary, where you feel some things need to change or you need to add one or two things to the proposal. These are the stage where you also do that. So the main internship period is a 3 months period, and during this period, you're expected to contribute to the organization. Like you must have seen on the Outreachy website, Outreachy is almost like a full-time job. I like to put it that way because you're expected to spend or contribute 40 hours of your week on the project or the organization you are working with. So that means to say you need to give it your time. Like you need to have enough time for it. So during the internship lasts for 3 months, and you are expected to be writing a bi-weekly blog. So at this stage, if you don't have a blog, it would be ideal for you to create one. So if there are different platforms you can actually use to create a fast blog. Archnote is there, Medium is there. You can use WordPress if you are not a web developer. If you're a web developer, you can create your own website with your blog inclusive. So because you'll be required to publish bi-weekly blog reports of your progress, what you are doing, some of the challenges you have encountered. And the good thing is Outreachy has a standard way of you doing that, because they actually provide you hints and topic blog ideas on what you should be writing on at each particular time. And during the course of the internship, from time to time, you'll be meeting with the Outreachy organizers on their IRC platform. So during these 3 months too, you have the opportunity to work on the projects, ask questions where need be. If you need to excuse yourself from the organization for the time being for any reason, you need to also communicate that with your organization or the organization you are contributing to. So basically, I think that is the summary of what I have to say concerning the internship. So at this point, I will give opportunity and room for people that have questions to ask. You can start dropping your questions if you have any questions to ask.
Okay, thank you so much, Glory. If you have any question for Glory, please drop it in the chat, but then we'll be taking the questions at the end of the whole session because of time.
Oh, that's
okay,
fine.
Glory. Yeah, everybody's question will be addressed at the end. So if you know all those questions you've been having about Outreachy application, I know a lot of us are already on the application process at the moment. A lot of us are still battling with our essays and thinking of how to go about them. So if you know any question you need, you have anything you need clarity on, please drop it as a chat, and they will be answered at the end of the session. So thank you so much, Glory. That was an eye-opening session. I never knew the internship process is actually. I believe that everyone here has gained another value to what you've always known about Outreachy internship, both the application phase and the contributing phases and the internship proper. Okay, so I hope you're not scared to proceed, because it's actually a lot tasking, you know, getting through the first phase, going into the second phase, and then getting to the internship. Well, it's actually a lot. All right, so thank you very much once again, Glory. So now we are going to be having Srishti Shetty. She's going to be taking us on tips for a successful Outreachy application and internship project. So she's going to be covering everything we need to know about the internship phase as it is, and how to stay connected with our mentoring organization, and a lot more. So Srishti, the floor is yours. Please keep dropping your questions even as the session is going. Thank you.
Okay, so I have got some slides. So let me see if I can present them first. Can you see my screen? Okay, could someone tell me if you're only able to see my presentation and not my notes? That would be great, and then I'll begin. All right, so hi everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world right now. I'm Srishti. I'm a developer advocate at the Wikimedia Foundation. which is the organization that supports and maintains Wikipedia and its sister projects. I'm very happy to be here today. I want to thank Zainab for inviting me to this webinar, and also very happy to be in the same session as Glory, as she's a former intern for Wikimedia. So in this session, I will be sharing with you some tips for a successful Outreachy application and internship project. And I want to say that these tips that I will share with you, they are my reflections from coordinating Wikimedia's participation in these Outreachy rounds several times. Though whatever I will share, you will find a lot of similarity with what Glory has already mentioned. So I will try to maybe skip some of the content or reiterate some that I feel maybe it is okay for you to hear twice. And I also want to put out a disclaimer upfront that if you have specific questions about the eligibility criteria, then I might not be the best person to answer those questions because I'm not part of the organizing team. And I will encourage you to direct those questions to Outreachy organizers. All right, so let's get started. So first, I wanted to highlight a little bit about the Outreachy program, the who, what, when, why, and where of this. And you have, I believe, already heard some of this from Glory. So I will highlight a few additional points. So one thing which is really cool about this program is that it is open to students as well as non-students, working professionals. And through this internship, they get to work not just on coding, but also non-coding projects. And when I say non-coding, I mean areas that are related to documentation, translation, outreach, marketing, research, design, etc. And yeah, this internship, it happens completely online. So you work with experienced mentors through the course of 3-month-long project. And then some of the other points that you will see in my slide, Glory has already highlighted that it's a 3-month-long paid internship. It runs twice in a year. And the idea behind this program is to support people from groups that are underrepresented in tech. So what does the application process looks like? Glory has done a really good job in explaining bits and pieces of this. So I will just quickly reiterate these 5 steps to you. So the number 1 is that you check the eligibility criteria. So since past few rounds, Outreachy has divided the program into 2 phases. One is the initial application period, and then there is another, which is the contribution period. So in the initial application phase, you fill out a form that Glory talked about a lot in her presentation. And basically the questions that are in that form are for organizers to assess whether or not you meet the criteria or not. And then once you clear that phase, you go into the contribution period, where you pick 1 or 2 small projects and then make small consistent contributions to it. And as you're making these contributions to a project, you also record them on the Outreachy site. And the final step is to just prepare an application and then submit it. And you can learn more about each and every step, steps that is listed here on the Outreachy website. So you can go to outreachy.org/apply to learn more, and you will get a sense of what the process is actually like. So now I want to go into the tips part of this presentation. So I might sound like my own grandma for the next few minutes, so please bear with me. I'm going to put my grandma hat on and will share with you some tips, and I will again say that these tips, they are my reflections from coordinating Wikimedia's participation in these programs since 2017. So I think I've run about 6 to 7 Outreachy rounds till now. So my very first advice to you all would be to start the application process early. And the reason why I say this is because I think that the Outreachy process, it's very time consuming and intense, as you have heard in this call many times by now. So it's not just that you are going to fill out an application form, but there is a contribution process involved here as well. So the reason why I also want to emphasize this so much is because sometimes we get applicants who write to us just a few hours before the deadline. Though we don't want to discourage them, but we have to sometimes clearly tell them that, hey, you know, your chances of getting accepted are very, very less. And if you can imagine an applicant who has been contributing since 1 month versus someone who just started a few hours ago, you're obviously going to see differences in both their applications. So really, really important that start the process as early as you can. So the second tip that I have here is about choosing a project that best fit your interests or skills or both. And this is important because the project that you are going to work on, it will be 3 months long. And that is why you might want to pick something that keeps you motivated all throughout and something that is close to your heart. And as far as the skills are concerned, if you will end up picking a project that involves skills you're already a little bit comfortable with, then in that case, the learning curve for you would be low and you will get started quickly. Though I say this, I know that it's not going to happen always that what you were looking for in the list of projects, you were able to find it. So in that case, you can go with beginner-friendly projects or a project that you can feel is welcoming to newcomers. So the next recommendation I have here is to focus more on quality than quantity contributions. So let me give you an example of a quantity contribution. So as an example, in case of a coding contribution, let's say, a quantity contribution is one that involves 5 pull requests put by someone, and all of these pull requests, they are related to fixing a spelling mistake in the code. Okay, and then what does a quality contribution look like? An example of that would be one that involves 5 pull requests, but 2 of those pull requests, they're related to fixing spelling mistakes in the code. 2 are, let's say, related to small bug fixes. And 1 is about a new feature. So the reason why I say that quality contributions are important than quantity, because I think that it helps mentors to assess your technical understanding of the project as well as your problem-solving skills, and it also shows how motivated you are to take on bigger challenges. So very important that instead of trying to increase the number of contributions that you make to a project, try to focus on quality contributions. So this point, it's related to getting feedback on your proposal prior to submission. So I would encourage you all to at least discuss the technical approach and implementation part of your proposal with your mentor before you submit your application, and then ask them for feedback as well. And try to do that early, not a few hours before the deadline, because if you do it early, you will give your mentor sufficient time to give you feedback. And then you also will have sufficient time to incorporate any changes that your mentor might suggest into the application before you actually submit it. So I think that not only this will help you to make a solid proposal, but it will also prepare you to take on an iterative development approach for the project going forward. So my fifth tip for you all is to ask questions. Ask too many questions, ask them early and often, but ask only specific questions. So yeah, definitely don't remain stuck on questions for so long. Please don't hesitate, ask them, but if possible, try to ask specific questions. And let me try to explain here what I mean by that by giving you an example of a not so specific question that we get often asked all the time. So one example of such question is, what skills would be required to work on your projects in this round? Or the second type of question that we get asked all the time is how to get started. And the reason why I say that these are not so specific questions, because I think that if you do thorough reading of projects that are showcased on the Outreachy website, you will automatically get answer to some of these questions. So try to do a bit of research before you ask something. If you can get answers easily to a question, then try to not ask them, because your mentors and community administrators, they get asked these kind of questions all the time, and sometimes then it annoys them that too many similar questions. So yeah, please ask questions early and often, and if possible, only specific questions. So the next one, it's about following the norms of the community. So here, what I want to say is that every community, they have their own set of norms and rules. So overall, try to do a bit of research to understand a bit about your community, what their mission is, what their values are before you dive in. And let's say if you want to interact with them. So try to do a bit of research first to know which venues your community uses or prefers for which forms of communication. Similarly, when you want to submit code changes, before you do that, make sure that you're familiar with their coding practices and their code contribution or review process. So the next one, that it is about following all project updates. So what I would not encourage you to do is to read a project description that you're interested in applying for, and then lock yourself inside a room for 1 month and then come up ready with a fantastic application to submit. So please try to not do that. And the reason why I say this is because in open source communities, I think the work, it happens very much in the open with frequent communication between peers, and it's very collaborative in nature. So I would encourage you to not just follow project updates closely, but also share your updates from time to time on the project task or with mentors or community, wherever it is appropriate to do so. So yeah, very important to follow all the project updates and share your updates as and when you are working on your application. And the last recommendation that I want to share with you, it's kind of personal and my favorite. So share your motivation for applying in the program with your mentor. So if it is possible, indicate it in the application, or if you get a chance to share it more informally with your mentor, please do that. Because I think that sharing your motivation for applying, it helps your mentor know you at a personal level and know where you're coming from and why you are interested in applying to the program in the first place. All right, so what if that after you followed all these recommendations and tips that you just heard from me, from Glory, and more recommendations that you will go through as and when you will dive deep into the application process, what if you still don't get in? So I would say that this is not the end of the world. There are lots of opportunities out there. And also, as far as I know, there is no hard limit on the number of times that you can apply for Outreachy. So there is always going to be the next time. And I'm sure that in this process of applying itself, you may have learned and enjoyed a lot already. So yeah, please, please, please don't lose hope if you don't get in. So now very quickly, I want to highlight some tips for a successful internship. So if you get accepted into the program, then what are some tips that you should keep in mind to make the most out of the Outreachy internship? So here are some quick tips. And one of them is to stick to your plan if possible. And this is important because I think that if you will stick to your plan, you will be able to deliver the planned outcomes. And with those outcomes, you will make yourself proud, you will make your friends and colleagues proud, and who knows, maybe your future boss proud as well. So try to stick to your plan, because I think for you, getting the concrete outcomes from this Outreachy program is very important. The second tip is that try to learn as much as you can. And I think this one is the key, because this is a very golden opportunity for you to, golden opportunity where you get paid to contribute to an open source project, as well as learn as many skills as you like. So try to learn as much as you want and you can during this 3-month period. The next one is that communicate regularly with your mentor. There is so much that can maybe go wrong. There might be changes in the plans, or you might feel stuck for different reason as and when you make progress on the project. So whatever that is, try to communicate regularly and try to also share your updates regularly with your mentor. And the last one is to know your community. If you get accepted, I think it will be a very golden opportunity again for you to work with the popular open source community, where people are working on lots and lots of cool projects, lots and lots of experienced mentors are there in the community. So not just that you work on your own project, but try to learn what is going on in the community, what kinds of projects people are working on, what kinds of activities they are engaged in, and so on. All right, so what happens when you are done with the internship? So I completely understand that after you are done, you might want to focus on the next career phase of your life, and that is maybe one of the reasons why you participated in Outreachy in the first place. So yeah, focus on that. And I think you can take help from your mentors in writing recommendation letters for you that you can use when you're applying for jobs or maybe grad schools, whatever is on your agenda. So that's something that you can do. But I want to briefly highlight that there are tons and tons of opportunities in open source communities to stay involved. There is a very popular contributor funnel in open source, which kind of looks like a pyramid. So on the bottom of the pyramid is where the contributor sits. And on top of the pyramid is where the maintainer of a project sits. So you can imagine that between these two roles, there are so many roles that are there. You can either become an owner of the project, or you can become a mentor and wear multiple hats and play different roles. So there are lots and lots of opportunities for you to contribute to projects in your spare time, be a volunteer. And you can also maybe try to find out if your organization has a local community and what sorts of activities happen in your local community that you can maybe become a part of. So yes, lots of opportunities for you to stay engaged after your Outreachy internship is over with the same community. All right, so yeah, that's all I've got for you. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me via email, or if you wanna send me a DM, you can do that on Twitter. I hang out a lot in Wikimedia's Zulip chat, which we use for our outreach programs. So if you wanna do a chat with me, you can come here and I'll be happy to share with you more. So yeah, thank you very much for listening.
All right, Trishti, thank you so much for sharing those knowledge with us. Like, it's been a very enlightening session about the Outreachy Internship application process, the phases, and the internship proper. So I know we all learned a lot. So you can say thank you to Trishti and Glory in the comments section or in the chat. So in the few minutes, we'll be taking some questions. We've already exhausted our time, so we'll be taking very few questions before we call it a day. So we have a question from Radhika. Radhika is asking about Python projects we can contribute to. I don't know if this is necessary. I don't know if the applicants are to run around for their own projects or their listed projects. So Gloria or Trishti, do you mind addressing this? He's searching for Python projects to start contributing in since he's done with his initial application. Hello, Glory or Trishti, any of you can take the question. So we run.
So I think my sense is that like only after you get accepted, only after you clear the initial application phase, you will be entered into the contribution phase, and only then you will be able to see the list of projects. So between now and that happens, you cannot see the projects. That's what my understanding is.
All right, thank you so much. I hope that answers your question. So when it comes to projects, you have to wait until you get accepted, then you can have access to the pool of projects you also contribute to. So we have a question from Bashiro. Here she said, now that we are waiting for October 1st to get to the contribution stage, what do you advise us to do for the meantime, pertaining the contribution and all? So what do we do in the waiting phase? I guess that's the question.
Yeah,
okay, so,
yeah, Glory can go. Okay, yeah.
Okay, in my opinion, since you are waiting, instead of just waiting, it would be best for you to actually look out for projects out there. It must not necessarily be projects that are posted on Outreachy. Any project, any open source projects that make do with the language you are familiar with, you can start getting your hands dirty by practicing to contribute to such projects.
All right, thank you, Glory. We also have two other questions here. I'm going to be fusing the two questions together. So Shola, Bomi, and Mafuza, I think both of you are asking the same thing, which is what are the criteria for evaluation for the chosen organization where one is going to be interning with? What are the evaluation criteria? Hello, did you get my question?
Hello? You missed,
yes, did you get the
yeah, I got the question. So for the criteria, I think it's something we've mentioned earlier. So basically, it's all depends on the quality contributions you have made to that organization. So we have to evaluate your contributions to know your skill level, to know if you'll be able to handle the project, if given the opportunity to intern with them. So if you make good quality contribution, I think it's a good place to start, as well as maybe your past contributions, things you've done in the past, things like that.
Yeah, I can also.
All right.
Yeah, I can also share quickly that yeah, there are lots and lots of criteria that matter here. So for example, one is that whether or not a candidate followed the recommended program guidelines, were they transparent in their communications with contributors, as Glory said, what contributions they made, and whether they have put a solid proposal, and what is their motivation for applying. So yeah, so many things really matter here.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. So the last question for this evening, Mafuza asked, for reviewing proposal, if there are more than one mentor, should I ask both for review?
Yeah, you can actually ask both. It depends on who gives you a quicker response, because you can have two mentors and one is always there whenever you need him or her. So whoever gives you the response that you need, you can go for. You can ask both of them. You can have different opinions as well.
All right. So that means that you can ask any mentor, you can send your projects to any mentor for review, right? Yeah. So I hope that answered your question, Mafuza. Okay, so one last thing, I saw a couple of people asking about projects where they can contribute to on React, on Python, aside from Outreachy. This is just a question. I know it's kind of out of the Outreachy Internship program, but since we are all talking about open source here, do you have any project ideas for these people where they can contribute on Python or React, or any place where they can go and have access to those? Maybe a website where they can go look them up or something.
Okay, I'll be sharing a link here for good first time issues or first time issues.
Okay, all right. So Glory is going to be dropping a link. Okay, she has dropped it already. So you can click on the link and check out for projects that you can contribute to. So if you have any other question, because of time, feel free to reach out to our guest, Glory at Glory, and to reach out to them via Twitter, and I believe their DM is open, and ask them the questions you might have. So thank you very much once again, Glory and Christy, for this amazing 1 hour. And I'm really hopeful that we are going to have a couple of successful applicants from this very webinar today. And I believe we are all going to implement 1 or 2 tips from our guests and polish up our application processes. And please don't forget to submit your application on time, as you pointed out. Don't submit at that. I think the application is ending on 20th, so please endeavor to send in your application before the deadline. So thank you all once again for joining in today's webinar. And feel free to tweet or post about what you learned in the session. Use the hashtags Oscar, use Oscar or Shecode Africa. You can also tag us so we can reshare and retweet your tweets or your posts. So thank you all so much once again for joining. Thank you to our wonderful guests for sharing with us how to aid our Outreachy Internship program. So with this, we call it a day for the session today. Thank you all so much for joining.
Thank you. Thank you, Manuel.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much, Glory.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for organizing. Really enjoyed sharing with